Okay, we're going to talk about behavior change, setting routines, sticking with habits. All of that's coming up in the show today. And I'm going to be joined by Dr. Karin Nordin. She's a mindset and behavior change expert. She specializes in health communication. She's the founder and CEO of the Body Brain Alliance, which is a coaching and education company built on the belief that real transformation happens when we align how we think and how we behave. I love this conversation because she gives so many practical things that we can implement today to start that behavior change. She's gifted us a little mini course. I'm definitely going to take that at the end of my podcast here today. I've listed it in the show notes below. So be sure to check that out and take the course, learn how to set goals, but also how to enact behavior change and routine so you can stick with it for the long haul. If you have a goal to become someone who is fit and healthy, this is the episode for you. Let's welcome Dr. Karin to the podcast. I'm here with Karin, and we're so happy that you've joined Move Daily Talks today. Thanks so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm pumped.
Yes, you are a published growth mindset researcher and behavior change expert. So tell us exactly what that is and what you are on a mission to do.
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in communication, and a PhD in a field called health communication specifically. And what we study in health communication is how we get people to change their health behaviors. So, as I was doing my PhD, I was reading all of these amazing studies about how people form habits and how you adjust your identity and how you adopt health behaviors and become consistent with those health behaviors. And most of it that I was reading in this research actually did not line up with the sort of pop psychology that you hear online and the stuff that everybody out there is saying. And so I I was also a person who really struggled in my life to change my own behavior. I really struggled with consistency. I really struggled with habit formation. And when I started applying the things that are actually in the research, they started to work. So that I was like, oh, I really, really, really need other people to hear this because there's so much, bull out there that is just completely untrue. And it's my mission to get people the real information about how to actually change.
I've probably been one of those people that have fallen prey, maybe not the right word, but just have believed some of the, pop research and have implemented some things, but oftentimes you find the habits not sticking. So I'm curious, what sort of research did you read? Have you done that showed how to switch behavior change?
Really, the main thing that is the huge difference between pop psychology and what's actually in the research is the idea of self-discipline. Everybody and their brother on the internet is talking about self-discipline. In the research, self-discipline is not an evidence-based concept. There
Oh,
is no one out there in the research world is actually looking at self-discipline specifically. And that is because what we culturally explain and describe as being self-discipline is really a multitude of what I call behavior change skills working together. So people who are self-disciplined often describe it as like, oh, they'll say, I wasn't motivated to work out this morning, but I chose to do it anyway because I thought about how I would feel afterwards. If you look at the actual definition of motivation, what they just did in that moment was motivate themselves. But they don't describe it as that. So then they're telling you, oh, you don't need motivation, you need discipline. When in reality, to get the output that is actually what we describe as self-discipline, you would need a skill called meta-motivational regulation, which is your ability to understand how much motivation you're experiencing in a moment, adjust that motivation, use tools to generate more motivation and direct it towards your goals. So that's like one tiny example of the ways that the research conceptualizes something very differently, if that makes sense.
totally makes sense. And that's good to differentiate it that way. So you said the first one was, what did you call it? Meta motivation?
Yeah, so one of
Meta,
the major change skills that I often talk about is something called meta motivational regulation, which is your ability to detect and understand how what motivation you may be feeling at the moment. You are always motivated, even if you don't feel motivated, because whatever action you're taking, you're motivated to be taking. Um, and so your ability to detect and understand where your motivation is currently directing you and redirect it towards behaviors that are in alignment with your goals.
Okay, so what are some other behavioral change skills that we can begin to learn about and then begin to implement?
Yeah. So another really big one is cognitive flexibility. And if you've heard
Mm.
of all or nothing thinking, cognitive flexibility is sort of the opposite of that. So when an influencer says, oh, I today was rainy and I didn't want to go on a run, so I adjusted and I just did 10 minutes on the treadmill instead. Your ability to not get stuck in what your original plan was and actually shift towards something that's workable in the moment, that itself is cognitive flexibility. So that's another one.
Does that, when we do that, does that create new neural pathways where we begin to have maybe more resilience or more grit within that skill? Is that how it
Yeah,
works?
sort of. So, these cognitive skills that I'm talking about, they're really ways of thinking. And you probably sort of grew up with one way of thinking. And that way of thinking was what psychologists call adaptive before, meaning it was doing something for you. Even if it's not doing something for you anymore, you grew up, for example, with all or nothing thinking because at some point it was protective and helpful for you. When you lean into cognitive flexibility and when you start enacting tactics that help you become more flexible, you will, yes, develop new neural pathways where you start to think differently overall as you become more and more skilled at that cognitive flexibility skill.
So skill obviously takes time, effort, practice, consistency, right? So I'm guessing people don't even know to practice this as a skill. So how do we practice it as a skill so that we could become better at it?
We work with a lot of clients who come to us for behavior change. And one of the activities that we will assign a client is something called a good, better, best spectrum. And the good, better, best spectrum is an concept that I have come up with where let's say that you want to work out more consistently. You would identify the best version of that. So maybe the best version of that is in your head, you're doing 4 hour-long strength training workouts in the morning. Awesome. What's one slightly, what's a version of that that's slightly less? That might be you are hitting a 30-minute Peloton workout at some point throughout the day. And then what is one step down from that? That might be your good baseline, which is you're going to go for a walk. You're going to go for a stroller walk in the morning, even if the whole rest of the day ends up being chaos. That when you spell that out and when you start choosing to use that spectrum instead of just quitting the workout entirely when you don't get that full hour, that's when you start to develop cognitive flexibility.
So should we take a goal that we have for ourselves? Maybe it is to become fit. Maybe it is to eat better, right? Maybe it is to be more mindful. So we have the three pillars: fitness, wellness, and nutrition. Should we take a goal within those categories then, if that is something we want to grow in, and then develop this good, better, best so that, and I noticed you didn't say poor or fail, which is amazing because then we keep it all positive. But should we develop something along that spectrum for each of the categories we want to improve in?
Yeah, so that would be one step. One of the other change skills is really just about how to set goals effectively. So let's say that you want to improve your nutrition. The first way that you can set an effective goal around that is to choose an approach goal rather than an avoidance goal. And that would be instead of telling yourself, I want to quit sugar or I want to do less snacking, you're going to tell yourself, I want to eat 15 servings of plants each week. Or I want to add a serving of protein to each breakfast this week. So you're adding something to your life rather than subtracting something from your life. That's pillar number one of effective goals. Pillar number two is that you are focused on behaviors, not only outcomes. So, a lot of people, when they approach something like fitness, they will say, oh, I want to run a half marathon, Or if they are trying to lose weight, they will say, I want to lose 10 pounds. What you actually want to do is focus on what you can control, which is your daily behavior, rather than what ends up happening. Because when you're focused on that daily behavior, you get a quicker return on investment in terms of your time and attention that you're putting into that thing. So set goals that are approach focused, make them behavior oriented. And then thing number three that you would do that is related to this idea of set effective goals is I always recommend having a goal that is frequency based rather than consistency based. This can be a little bit of a shift for people. And again, this third one is more of my personal philosophy that I've seen help people really, especially people who struggle with being consistent. And so what you're going to do there is instead of saying, I want to take, I want to work out 4 times a week, you might say, I want to work out 16 times this month. And
Hmm.
by zooming out just a little bit, you actually reduce that focus on consistency. And if the first week of the month you only work out 3 times, that's great. Just adjust a little bit and work out a little bit more the next week. Or if you have a week where you work out a little bit more and then you have a free day for, when you're sick or something. And so moving out, zooming out and focusing on frequency, increasing the number of reps before you focus on consistency can be really, really impactful for people there too.
So when we do zoom out, how does that help us psychologically?
So, what happens with a lot of people I work with is that they have been told over and over again by every single person that is successful that you have to be consistent or you won't succeed. And they've been told over and over again, be consistent. And so what happens then is we have this almost like moral attachment to consistency. We tell ourselves, I'm going to go for a daily walk. And on day number 3, when we skip it and we miss that walk, it doesn't just feel like, oh, I missed my walk today. It feels like, oh my gosh, I'm not a consistent person. I'm never going to be able to be consistent. Therefore, I'm never going to be able to meet my goals. So we've blown consistency up into this huge thing in our brains. And we can work on the psychology of that individually. I often tell people work on separating your sense of consistency from your worth. But while we do that, it can help to shift our goals in this different way where there's actually less focus on everything looking the same day after day or week after week. And there's more focus on adapting in the moment to make the best choice decision possible, even if you're not going to be as consistent as you want to that week.
There seems to be a bit of relaxing in that, I kind of feel like, okay, that is more achievable. Um, it's funny because one of the quotes that I use all the time is by Ovid, and he says, "Dripping water on the stone hollows it out, not through force, but through persistence." And I've actually used that a lot about how our micro processes, our small movements forward consistently over time can help us achieve our targets. So how could I switch some of that language or interpretation maybe to align with your philosophy here? Because I like what you're saying. It feels more relaxed, not so much pressure.
I actually think that quotation itself is pretty aligned because what you're saying is
Okay.
it's the persistence of drip after drip, not necessarily that the drip needs to be at the same rate and speed and look identical every freaking time. And
Sure.
that's where people get obsessed with consistency. The other thing there is that I tell people that focusing on consistency is an advanced skill. And so if you want to start a new habit, let's say that you want to eat more plants, instead of telling yourself, I'm going to consistently add a serving of vegetables to my lunch that I'm packing for work, you can say to yourself, I'm going to do it once. That's the first step, actually, in forming a new habit or starting a new behavior. You need to do it once. And then you need to do it again and again and again and again, more frequently. And then eventually you will become consistent. But if you focus on becoming a person that chooses that behavior day after day, regardless of if you did it yesterday and regardless of if you do it tomorrow, eventually you'll naturally fall into consistency. If you hyperfixate on establishing consistency off the bat, you'll sort of rebound against that, and that's when we get into the all or nothing thinking and the ickiness of, oh, I didn't do it yesterday, so I don't have to do it today either.
That sounds like this having a theme that of who you want to become is really important then. Can you talk to us about why that would be?
There is an entire line of research on a concept called the future self.
Mm.
And I think of my future self as a friend of mine. I want you to think about a person who is your friend versus a person who's just an acquaintance. You're going to be more likely to take an action that protects your friend, that serves your friend, that it's going to do something nice for your friend. Most of us, though, have not taken the time to establish a relationship with our future self, to think about a future version of us, to take action today that serves a future version of us. So, in a moment where we're stuck between something really tempting, like, oh, really, really, really want to ditch my workout and sleep in instead, and we're stuck between that and the possibility of doing the workout, which we know will benefit us in the long run, we choose to sleep in because we don't have practice. We don't have a relationship established with our future self yet. But the more you take tiny actions, drip after drip, day after day, that serve that future self, that think about and consider the future version of you, the more you'll establish this sort of loop relationship where you'll go, oh, I'm really glad past me did that. I'm going to do this for future me. And that is actually something called, in psychology, we call it temporal balance, which is means we are considering when we make decisions and when we are thinking, we're considering our past selves, our current selves, and our future selves almost equally.
Think we talk about change so much, but we just sometimes can't do it, or we just don't come to it, or we try it and then we fail. And so, thinking about your future self, how do we do that practically? Is that something that you would write down and daily visit that in the morning, and then execute actions and behaviors throughout the day so we could practice this skill? Do you know what I mean? I think we just talk about it so much, talk, 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 and then change never happens. And then we are angry at ourselves and we look back and we're like, oh, should have done something, didn't know what to do. So how do we practically move into a place where we have some of that temporal balance and we're beginning to think about these things, but not just think about them, execute them?
Yeah. So there's two things I want to touch on here. One is that most of the time, a lot of the time, I guess I would say, we don't succeed with changing because we are trying to change too much. So I make the equivalent of we are running 1 mile of 26 different races and then saying, I just ran a marathon. Why don't I get a reward? You didn't finish anything.
Mm.
You didn't finish a single race. Yes, you did work hard. Yes, you did put in effort. But because you put it in 26 different directions, you are getting no return on that work. So people come to me and they're like, Karin, I want to eat healthier and I want to get up in the morning and I want to be kinder to my mom or my kids or whoever. And I want to do this and that and the other thing, and they feel like everything has to change. And so they're so resistant to actually setting one singular, small, doable goal for a specific period of time. That is a primary reason why people don't change because they're splintering their power and attention and time into 7 million different micro goals, trying to make everything into this like elusive, perfect week. So that's reason number one.
Okay,
In
go ahead.
terms of like the future self stuff, pop psychology tends to fall into one of two sort of camps. Camp number one is the tiny habit camp. That's where you're like, I am going to just focus on these tiny, tiny, tiny things. I'm going to do a push up after I pee every time, or whatever the example is from, Atomic Habits. You're so, so
That.
focused on tiny, tiny, tiny daily behaviors. But then they don't really feel like they mean anything. You're like, ugh,
Mm.
do I really have to, you know, chug this glass of water after I floss tonight? Like, does it really matter if I do this? And so that's a struggle. Then the other camp is very much like identity. Pick a word for your year, envision who you want to become, vibes, affirmations, feelings, but they don't have anything concrete.
Right.
So what
Nothing
we do
tangible.
in our program is, which is entirely dedicated to helping you become your future self, is we have people pick what I call your core four behaviors and your core four values. And you can do this. It's actually a great technique, which is for 90 days, you're going to think about your future self. And you're going to think, who is this version of me? Who am I becoming? What behaviors does that person do on a regular basis? And what values guides that person's life? So, for example, one of your daily behaviors might be a morning walk, and one of your values might be health.
Mm.
Then, at any given moment, you know what you're focused on in a day in order to become your future self. You're going to become your future self by acting in alignment with those behaviors. But let's say that it is absolutely miserable outside. Let's say it is like blizzard level weather and you live in Duluth, Minnesota, right? The very, very top of Minnesota. And you're like, oh, I can't go for my 10-minute morning walk this morning. You can use the value as a compass. You can use the value as a North Star and you can go, okay, but if the future version of me chooses health, values health, how do I adapt that behavior right now in order to still do something?
I
And
like
if the
that.
future version of you chooses health, then maybe that means you're going to loop your kitchen a couple of times. Maybe that means you're going to do a 10-minute strength workout instead. Maybe that means you're going to pop on some workout YouTube video and go along with that. You can use the value as a way to adjust the habit so that you can continue with it even in circumstances that aren't ideal.
So you said four behaviors, four values. Are those in different buckets? Like, do you have some primary buckets that you think is helpful for us to look at?
I don't actually do buckets.
Okay. Okay.
And that is because I've had planners before they where they divide your life into like six different areas. And that's fine if you want to use that as like a brainstorming tool. But that very, very quickly leads to the overwhelm and the 26 different races because people think they can set a goal in every single domain. And when you set a goal in every domain, you're overloading yourself. It doesn't matter that technically your financial goals are in a different realm of your life than your nutrition goals. Both of them use the same pool of resources, which is your money, your time, your energy, and your attention.
Okay, so yeah, you're saying it doesn't really matter. You just think about your future self, what she looks like, who she's going to be. We have a phrase that we use all the time at Move Daily Fitness too. It's people like us do things like this. And so even just thinking, what do people like us do, right? And then those could become the things that you want to work on to become a person like that. I
Yeah,
like it.
I
I
love
like
that.
it. Yeah, well, it's not mine. That was Seth Godin, but I have adopted it because it works so well. It's like it just gives you that identity,
Yeah,
habit that you are becoming someone different, and I like that.
yeah.
Um, you have created, I guess, a concept, a funnel called Observe, Prototype, Commit, Revise. And I'm guessing this is a process that we can go through in order to make some habits stick. But could you run us through that and explain each one of those?
Observe, prototype, commit, revise is the four steps of forming an effective routine. And most people miss the first one. So, the first part of forming an effective routine is observing what you are doing right now. People are like, Karin, I don't have an evening routine. Yes, you do. Your evening routine is to sit in front of the TV until you're so bored that you switch to doom scrolling in your bed, where you do that until, the little TikTok monster tells you you've been scrolling too long, and then you slam off your light. That is your routine. It doesn't matter if it's not an ideal or optimal or effective routine, you do have a routine. Whatever you're doing now, semi regularly, is your routine. And so you need to observe that first because What most people do is they sit down at their kitchen table and they're feeling really yucky about themselves. And so what they do is they create this list and they're like, in the evening, at 7 o'clock. I'm going to turn all my lights down low and I'm going to put on my blue light glasses and I'm going to get in the shower and I'm going to do my nice scrub down and then I'm going to brush my teeth and I'm going to do my red light therapy and I'm going to read a book and I'm not even going to touch my phone. I'm not even going to desire to touch my phone because my new routine is going to be so effective. They design this like optimal, rigid routine. And then they do it for 2 days and then they can't follow it because it was so far away from your existing life. It's almost like flying from, Kentucky to Belgium. You have to give yourself time to adjust to the time zone. And that's with routines too. So you need to start where you are. If your current routine is television, doom scroll, angry lights out, then maybe you shift it to television, doom scroll, alarm clock, pajamas, skincare, lights out. And that is maybe the first step. So the first step is to become aware of what your routine is right now. Observe. Observe your natural desires, your natural habits, anything that you're feeling or experiencing. Start there. Then what you're going to do is you're going to prototype. So this is where you're going to pick a couple of changes that you might want to make, and you're going to test them out for a week or two. So you might say, okay, I think I want to try taking a shower at night. I've heard that that's good for, regulating your body temperature drops and your ease into sleep. Okay, we're going to try that. But maybe you do that a couple of days and you realize that getting yourself, you don't like showering, like there's an ick around showering for you. And so getting yourself to get off your phone and jump in the shower is like just it's actually really hard even if it seems optimal. Okay. Then you haven't committed to something you have not tried yet. It is most people do the equivalent of like going to Costco and buying a mega box of a protein bar that they have never once tasted in their life. And that, my friend, is a recipe for disaster because
Right.
if you don't like it, you have to eat 42 more protein bars. So you're committing to this routine that you've never tried. You don't know what it's going to feel like. You don't know how your brain is going to react. So you prototype first. You learn a little bit. Then, once you've got some insights, you've got something that you want to start on, you commit to it for a specific period of time. This is the other mistake that people make. They're like, this is my bedtime routine from now until I die. Like there's never an end point. It's like I will do this habit indefinitely. What? That makes no sense. So commit for a period of time. In the month of September, I'm going to test out this specific routine. And then at the end of September, you do a little review. How often am I following this routine? How is it working for me? Are there pieces that are missing? Is there anything I need to add? And then you're going to go back to the beginning, observe, prototype, commit, revise.
Is 1 month a good time commitment? I guess it depends on what the thing that you're wanting to implement is, but do you typically say test things for about a month?
I typically say that it kind of depends on how much like novelty you like in your life. Like if you really struggle to with commitment and consistency, if you're like, oh, I always set goals and then abandon them, I would actually keep that prototype period shorter and maybe just do like 2 or 3 days or even a week. Um, and you can even keep the commitment piece shorter too. Like, hey, I'm going to do this routine that I've committed to for 1 week. Okay, now I've revised it again. I've adjusted it again. Okay, this time I'm going to keep it for 2 weeks because I'm a little bit, more acclimated to it. So you can scale up the amount of time you're committing based on how capable you feel of follow through.
Fall is here now, so a lot of people are in the zone where they really want to make some changes. I see that in January, I see that in April. And so there are different seasons in our life, right? Where we're really motivated and then sometimes we're not so motivated. What is the importance of embracing seasonality in life? Sometimes, well, a lot of us are empty nesters, and so we're going through a full different season, or we're in menopause and it's like been painful. We can't sleep. We're having hot flashes. Again, a season, but how does that come into play here?
So if you think about actual seasons, what works in summer doesn't always work in winter. In summer, I can go put my feet in the grass at the beginning of my workday, and that's awesome. In winter, I would have hypothermia and my toes would fall off if I did that, right? So if you think about actual seasons, they are different. And you can also use that aspect of thinking about the seasons of your life. We have a fair amount of people in our program who are in your age demographic, right? Menopausal women specifically. And a lot of times I see menopausal women comparing themselves and their nutrition and their goals and their capacity and their energy and their time and their attention. They're comparing that to 10 years ago. They're comparing that to 15 years ago. A lot of us, for some reason, are comparing ourselves to like our 21, 22-year-old self in certain aspects. And so when you make the distinction that, like, okay, I am in this season of my life right now. This is the energy I have. This is the time I have. This is the attention I have. This is the capacity that I have for things. Actually distinguishing it as a different season can help you separate and not be comparing yourself to an older version of you that was completely different and was dealing with different things and had different circumstances.
Karin, what do you think about journaling? Is there anything beneficial about pen to paper, hand to keyboard? Talk us through if that can be a useful protocol for us.
Yeah. So I definitely think journaling can be incredibly useful. It can be useful in two different ways. Number one is really just awareness raising. A lot of us have, especially women, especially like what I would consider to be high achieving women, when they come to me, they don't actually know what they are thinking and feeling on a daily basis. So they tell me, Karin, I have no idea why I'm behaving this way. Every night I find myself eyeball deep in a bag of popcorn and I just don't know why it keeps happening. Like I don't even like popcorn that much, right? In that case, what happens is you are sort of living on autopilot and your thoughts and feelings have gotten so far shoved down that they're impacting your behavior, but you don't have awareness of it. So that's the first purpose of journaling is to just say, hey, what am I thinking right now? What am I feeling right now? Where does the feeling live in my body? So to raise your somatic awareness too.
Mhm.
One of the tips I like to tell people about journaling, especially awareness focused journaling, is you can do it as a voice note, and sometimes that's more effective. So I will start a voice note. You don't even have to, you can just talk out loud. For some reason, it feels better to me if I'm like, I'm going to record this and then I delete it afterwards. But start a voice note and just talk. Talk like you're venting to a friend. Talk like you're, having a conversation with your trusted partner, whoever. But just if you're finding yourself in a situation where you're like, oh, I really don't want to work out, start that voice note and talk, 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 talk. And you'll find your reasons. You'll find the resistance. You'll uncover a lot about yourself. So that's purpose number one. And then purpose number two is reflection. So we know that when you reflect on what went well, what didn't go so well, maybe you intentionally take something difficult about your day and you reframe it. I call that gritty gratitude. Um, when you do that, you essentially create a data loop. Like, oh, today I learned this. I'm noticing that I learned that. And so tomorrow I'm going to do it slightly differently. A lot of people are making the same mistakes over and over and over again when it comes to their behavior because they're not interrupting it with something like journaling that can help you strategically reflect about your day.
That sounds a lot like your how to build a routine protocol of observe, prototype, commit, revise. So you're getting things down on paper. So you're observing that. Maybe you're observing your thoughts and getting in touch with how you really think. You're creating this prototype. Maybe I could do this differently tomorrow or do that differently tomorrow. You're committing then and saying, okay, let's do this. Let's try something different. Let's put this in place. And then you're coming back again, maybe journaling the next day or in the next week or the next month and saying, what went well with that? How was that beneficial? Is
Yeah.
that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, 100%. I think that what people miss about behavior change is either the scientific part of it or the personalized part of it. So a lot of
Okay.
people will follow what they see online. They'll buy some planner, they'll copy some influencer's workout routine, and they never customize it to their own life. Or people are always coming up with their own version. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to try this, that, or the other thing. But they aren't aware or up to date on what the latest science says. So you're essentially trying a bunch of different things that there's a lot of research saying it's probably better to do it a different way. So you're not making an informed choice about what you personally want to do. So the scientific perspective is important, but both of them need to work together. You want to choose a strategy that's an evidence-based strategy so you don't waste your very valuable time and attention and effort. But you also don't want to be so rigid about, I have to do it exactly this way. Or, Karin says I have to do a set approach goals, but avoidance goals have always worked for me. Great. If avoidance goals have always worked for you, then do it. Like your life matters. Your experiences matter, but we need both.
Hmm. Can you just go back to gritty gratitude and explain what that looks like?
Yeah. So gritty gratitude is when it's sort of like a gratitude list, right? A traditional gratitude list is you write down three things in your day that you're grateful for. A gritty gratitude list is a spicy version of that, where you write down the three most hellish, awful, unpleasant, frustrating, icky versions of your day. And then you find gratitude for those things.
Mm.
So, for example, my toddler yesterday napped for all of 45 minutes, even though I had just a ton of work. And when she woke up, she was irate and I was so frustrated. And so last night in my gritty gratitude journal, I wrote, I am so frustrated. I was so frustrated when my daughter woke up from her nap and I'm really grateful for that frustration because it means that I have so many things in my life that I want to give my attention to. I am
Mm.
overflowing with things that I love and care about, and I'm really grateful for that. So it's
Beautiful.
it's hard to do. It's not easy to do, and you don't have to do it for anything. Like it's not toxic positivity where like you're trying to make everything into a good thing, but it's strategically taking the moments that are frustrating or irritating or whatever and finding a reason to be grateful that they happened.
I love that because I think I've done that too, and I've tried to do that because, and then in the moment when something is frustrating, it's more available to you, right? It's like, okay, calm yourself, take a deep breath. What can we see here in this moment? So if you practice that, something happens during the day, you journal about it at night, doing that more frequently, again, it's available to you in your mind's eye, in your brain. It's like accessible almost. So I really like that. I think that's a great idea. Our final question. I know you like to celebrate progress. Why is it so important that we just even celebrate those small wins?
Celebration is a form of reflection. When you celebrate, you notice what went well,
Mm.
why it went well. You learn from it. But you want to not only learn from your mistakes, you want to learn from your successes too. You need both in order to have the full picture. And when you have the full picture, you are going to be a lot more effective in your approach. So that's one reason. But then the other reason is that if you don't actually celebrate, and I mean truly celebrate when you hit a milestone, if you're always on to the next one, you're less and less motivated to actually hit those milestones. I mean,
Mhm.
imagine like a child, how their development would look different if after after my daughter walks for the first time, I don't yeah, yeah, yeah,
Sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm so
Mhm.
excited.
Mhm.
Imagine what that would do to a child. It's doing the same thing to you. You need
Mm.
that encouragement just as much as a toddler does, just as much as a child does, but you're not giving it to yourself. And so of course, you find yourself unmotivated and you don't really care and you're not really sure if it's worth it. Start implementing celebration more frequently and you'll find that that starts to change.
We had someone share the other day in one of our Facebook groups about an achievement, basically being able to do X amount of sprint minutes on her bike versus when she started, months ago. And that achievement in the moment, she just broke into tears because she was so proud of herself for accomplishing her speed and time. and then shared it in the group. But I mean, the group just rallied around her and it was just unreal. It just motivates you, right? It's very encouraging, inspiring. Plus, when you share it, even in community, it can inspire others to go, you know what? Why don't I try something like that for myself? Set a target or work towards something like that because it does feel so good. So yeah, I like that, celebrating our progress. Karin, you are just such a wise lady. I loved all of this. This was yeah, just helpful. And I hope that our audience will take some of these things, even re-listen to it. Grab pen and paper, do a voice note, like Karin said, hands to typewriter, computer. That just showed my age right there. I bet you never had a typewriter, did you?
So
Anyway, and just put some of these things down. But also follow Karin over on her social media. And of course, you can work with her as well. Can you share with our audience where people can find you and or work with you?
yeah, so my Instagram is at Karin Nordin, PhD. You can find my business at bodybrainalliance.com. If you do find me on Instagram, if you go to the link in my bio, there is a free future self map mini course, and that is definitely the best place to start because it'll walk you through choosing your core four habits and your core four values, and really this whole process of envisioning your future self, which can be really, really fun and for a lot of people is super impactful. So that's where I would start.
It's helpful. I can add the link to that mini course in the show notes below as well. And yeah, I'll add her handles down there also so you can follow her. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. It was a pleasure meeting you. You are a force to be reckoned with, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of your work in the years to come. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Now, to all of you, go move daily in your fitness, your wellness, your nutrition, and your routine and habit setting. And we'll see you all in the next Move Daily Talks.